On a recent episode of the Two Hosers Photo Show, I talked about picking up a new cinema lens. So today I want to talk about what it is, why I like it. Do you need one? So the answer to that question, first of all, do you need a cinema lens? Probably not. Unless you shoot a lot of video like I do, a lot of DSLR video. If you shoot stills, don't bother. So at this point, you're probably just going to watch out of curiosity. I do shoot a lot of video though. And for me, one of the drawbacks to shooting DSLR video, and there are a couple, is fighting with focus. I can't stand the way the still lenses with their autofocus are designed for video. For stills, they're fantastic, love them, wouldn't change a thing. For video, however, they're a problem, and everything is just a street fight in order to keep things in focus. Why is that? Back in the old days, with the Canon FD lenses and a whole bunch of other lenses, but this is what I happen to have, these were full manual focus lenses. You couldn't use autofocus. What that meant was you used the barrel, and when you got to infinity, let's say, it stopped. You can hear it. Go back the other way to the minimum focal distance, which is, around a foot. Same thing, it stops. Which means that no matter what you do to it, where you turn it, every time you turn it back to where it's marked 4 feet, it will focus to 4 feet. Very, very handy. Now, when they went to autofocus, in order to save power and whatnot, they have basically an internal, what I call a floating focus, which means you can grab the ring and you can use manual focus all you like. And it works pretty well. But inside, it's got its own little focus. I don't even know how to describe it. It's got its own little motor that focuses the internals. And so when the autofocus goes, the external ring doesn't move. What that means is you get to infinity on the focus ring, and you keep going, you can keep spinning and nothing happens, nothing moves. The second you click back the other way, it starts to move again. Same thing at the other end when you get to the minimum focal distance. So it's kind of always spinning, which means that physically, this focus ring does not correspond to any specific focal distance. That's a problem in video. Now, the lens I bought the 35mm T1.5 from Volumex here in Deutschland. It's called Rokinon in North America, I believe, and it's a company called Samyang that makes it. Now, I love this thing. First off, I love this thing. I bought it for the focus. The main reason is the focus. Now, it's a full manual lens, which means it's got the aperture built right into the barrel, and same with the focus, which means no autofocus at all, 100% manual focus. But it has the stops. So you get to the end, stops. And it's even got the gears built right in if you want to get the follow focus unit, which I don't necessarily yet, but I can always add that on. So why is this kind of focus important when you're making movies? Well, it's important to have the barrel correspond to a proper focal distance. For the main reason is I like to mark focus. Anytime you're having the actors move or you're moving the camera and you're changing the distance from your camera to your subject, you're going to have to change focus. Now, how do you do that accurately? The best way to do it is I put tape right on the lenses here. Right on the barrel of the lens, put a couple pieces of tape on there, and you have your actors stand at their first mark, and you put a little mark. You get focus, get perfect focus using live view, and make a mark. Then you have your actors move to their second position, you get focus, and you make another mark. So that during the scene, you, or probably a focus puller, a whole nother person doing a separate job, as your actors move, they simply go from mark 1 to mark 2. And that's it. Because that mark always corresponds to that focal length, that focal distance, they're going to be in focus every time. Now the same is true of a dolly move. So I put together just a real quick sample of a dolly move. Previously what I would end up doing when I was going to move the camera is I would start out of focus and go into focus, because pulling focus with one of these lenses is nearly impossible to replicate the conditions every time. So what I would end up doing is just to make things simple, I would start out of focus and I would push into the shot, would then come in focus. It's a little bit too artsy and it kind of takes you out of the scene. Now with this lens, what you can do is very similar to what I described, make two marks, and as you're dollying, change the focus and you get bang on focus. Another reason people like this lens is it has the declicked aperture ring, which essentially, first of all, it's a T-stop. I shouldn't say f-stop, it's a T-stop. F-stop is the ratio of the focal length divided by the how wide the lens will open. And that's how you get your T-stop, or f-stop. This is a T-stop, which is a scientific measurement of how much light actually passes through. So the difference being, you have in a car, you have horsepower at the engine and horsepower at the back wheels. How much is lost in that transfer? So this one, they've done a scientific measurement and determined it's exactly a T1.5 is going through. Now, to be honest, for the price that we're paying for these lenses, I'm not going to bet my left thumb on that outcome. However, they are great. It's a 1.5. It can see in the dark, much like the 50 millimeter lens or the 1.4. These are fantastic. But what is a declicked aperture and why is that important? Well, first of all, when you have the older lenses, it doesn't matter the FD, the autofocus ones, whichever, the EOS lenses, when you change the aperture, you can hear it click. And that goes in third of a stop increments, which means it stops down incrementally. With this one, it's 100% smooth, which means that not only can you get it, you don't have to worry about a third of a stop increments, which, P.S., I never worried about. If you ever have to change in the middle of a shot, you can make a slight alteration to the exposure using the f-stop, and you're unlikely to notice. Whereas with this, you're going to notice as it clicks down incrementally. So for me, it's not as much of a deal breaker, but I do love the declicked aperture. So that is what a cinema lens is. Thanks for watching. Be sure to tune in to the show and get out there and make better photos.